for us tonight, and we appreciate him coming out here and the kind words that he said about the program. A little bit about our keynote speaker tonight. He was drafted and signed by the Kansas City Royals. That was the second time he was drafted. The Royals signed him in 1982 in the amateur draft, and in 1983 he was traded by the Kansas City Royals to the Toronto Blue Jays. He hit 31 home runs with 84 RBI during his 4 seasons with the Jays. Following the 1988 season, he signed in Japan to play with the Hanshin Tigers, where he became a local hero and garnered the nickname Wild Bear. He gained some recognition by the Detroit Tigers when he hit 38 home runs in his stint in Japan in 1989. And he joined the Detroit Tigers in 1990, where he hit 51 home runs and had 132 RBI, becoming the first 50 home run man in Major League Baseball in over 25 years. In 6 years with the Tigers, he had 4 consecutive 30 home run and 100 RBI seasons, which was amazing at that time. And you think about that, it probably would have been more except for the strike shortened season, where I believe he had 29 home runs that year, or 28 home runs, but he would have definitely, had it not been for the strike, garnered another 30 home run, 100 RBI season. He was narrowly edged by MVP award in 1990 and 1991. His power was incredible. He was one of 4 players to hit the ball out of Tiger Stadium and later hit one out of Milwaukee's County Stadium. He was traded to the Yankees in 1996, where he won a World Series. He had 390 during that World Series. Finished his career with the Cleveland Indians. Was later signed by the Toronto Blue Jays and finished up there. And his career hit 319 home runs, over 1,000 RBIs, and 2 stolen bases. You know, the fans nicknamed him Big Daddy because of his big smile, peaceful temperament, huge home runs, and huge physical stature. And please, as you walk by, my wife, stay over there because chicks love the long ball. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Big Daddy, Cecil Fielder.
Thank you very much. Dean, after that great introduction, I just want you to know that your check will be in the mail soon. Thank you for that introduction. I just wanted to let Sean know that I've done it twice. Been married twice, and both of those days were the best days of my life. It's working out better than the second one, but they were the best days of my life. Sean's dad is been running around there, keep asking me if I needed anything to drink. I told him no about 6 times, but there was a cup that always ended up in front of me. So I think he's trying to get me a little toasty this evening. I don't know why. I was glad you guys hurried up because it's past my bedtime. Adam kind of picked that out. I was getting a little woozy over there, worried about if I was going to make it, because by now, 10:15, I'm way deep in the sleep. Well, you know, I just, feel good about coming back up here. I think this is a very special occasion. There's one kid that's on the dais here that was a kid when I first came up here to Toronto. Matter of fact, his father was my team doctor all my years. He was always a good man to me. He always took care of me. He might even listen to me complaining about not getting playing time. But, we had a great team here in Toronto when I was here in the 80s. I mean, if you really look back at that team, first Canadian team to win a title, we won the American League East, had an opportunity to go to the World Series. I thought we were going to get there. We had all the ingredients to be there. As a matter of fact, that year was the first year they changed the format from 3 out of 5 to 4 out of 7. So, we ran into George Brett and the Kansas City Royals, and they were hot, and they were on the train, and they eventually went on to win that World Series. But I tell you, my time in Toronto was always sweet. I loved being here in Toronto. It was a great place for me to be as a young man, not really knowing that I was good enough to be a Major League Baseball player. Being a kid from South Central Los Angeles, really loving the game of basketball and really playing football. Everybody thought that was going to be my game. I was going to play football in college, but I got to tell you a little story. I went to the University of Southern California on my recruiting trip, and I thought I was a pretty good linebacker until I got to the University of USC. They had a guy named Chip Banks that played at SC, and they were doing linebacker drills. And these linebacker drills were taking place all by themselves, just a linebacker. So freshman kid laid on his back, and Chip Banks laid on his back, and the coach put the ball in the middle of him, blew the whistle, the freshman kid picks up the ball, runs into Chip Banks, and it was like an explosion. Chip Banks fractured his face mask, the kid was knocked out cold, and the coach blew the whistle and said, let's move down to the yard. And that was the end of my football career. So I go home after my recruit trip, at SC, and my mom said, well, son, how'd it go? Did everything go great? I said, Mom, I ain't playing football in college. So she said, son, what are you going to do? You got a couple opportunities to play college basketball at UC Pepperdine, which wasn't good at the time, UC Santa Barbara. But she said, what are you going to do? I said, well, Dad told me to give baseball a try. She said, well, you haven't played baseball since Little League. And I said, well, we're going to start playing again now because I'm not playing college football. So all the coaches, all the college coaches, all the guys that recruited me to play linebacker in college were calling my mama's house like at midnight, 1 o'clock, trying to get me to commit to go to college and play football. So my mama said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to change my numbers. She changed the numbers. We got rid of all the college scouts. So at that point, I knew I had to do something else because I had just turned down major colleges to go play football, and I think they finally figured out that I didn't want to play. So I started playing baseball. I was 16 years old, the greenest cat on the field, I hadn't played since Little League, and I started out on this venture to play baseball and had a focus in mind that I was going to eventually have an opportunity to go to college and play baseball, not knowing that I had an opportunity to play professional baseball. So I started playing, did all right, I went out there, my coach, John Romano in high school, he's still at my high school, still coaching. He told me, you got to work extra. You're so far behind, you got to try to catch up. So I'm out there, and back then we didn't have lights at our ballpark in high school. We had this one light at the backstop. So he'd sit me at that light at the backstop and throw me balls in the dark, and I'd be trying to hit these balls in the dark. But what it was doing was it was really making me focus and concentrate on my eye-hand coordination, trying to hit the ball in the dark, and I did it every single day. But the thing about it is, for some reason, Ed Crosby, at that time was a scout for the Baltimore Orioles. And Ed Crosby's son played in the big leagues, and he eventually went on to be a pretty good little player. And Ed went on to move up and doing what he does as a scout. But I was his first kid that he picked that year, 1981. So Ed Crosby tells me, he comes to the house and he talks to my mom, they draft me in the 31st round. He says, son, you need to go to school, you ain't ready. I was kind of disappointed. I'm like, damn, I just got drafted, and this dude's telling me to go to school. I wanted to play pro baseball because I thought I was that good. I wasn't that good. That was the wrong way to go. I think the thing that helped me out the most is when I made up in my mind that I was going to try to pursue a Major League Baseball career. I was going to do everything that I could to try to get to the big leagues. And I think the reason why things started going good for me is because I started working hard. I started doing everything I possibly could. I was strong, I could hit. I had to work on my game. I had to try to make somebody recognize me. And there was one scout that recognized me. He was playing winter ball over in LA. They had this little winter program. It was the Kansas City Royals scout. His name was Guy Hansen. So every time they used to take me out to play, I would never play against the other professional teams. I would only play when he played against the college team because he was trying to hide me. Well, he hit me long enough to where he could draft me. He drafted me in the 4th round of the secondary phase. They don't even have that part of the draft anymore, so you knew I was probably the last pick. But they drafted me, and they sent me off to a place called Butte, Montana. Now, for a kid from South Central LA, going to Butte, Montana was culture shock. We had the old swinging doors at the M&M Bar and Cafe where we ate. The guys that were coming in wearing their knives and pistols on them. I'm like, look here, I don't think this is going to work. So I called my mama, that's what, I usually do when something ain't going right. I get mama calls. Told mom, and mom, I don't think this is going too well. It might be time for me to come home. She said, nope. You ain't coming home this time. And I think that's when I really realized that I had to grow up. I was an 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old kid, you know, out in Butte, Montana. There was nobody there to, you know, take care of me. I had to try to take care of myself. So I wasn't really one of the top picks. I had a guy named Joe Satari, who was my roommate at the time in rookie ball. And Joe Satari was one of the top first basemen in the Kansas City organization. You know, they drafted him high and all that kind of stuff. But Joe had got hurt, you know, and I heard this story about Wally Pitt one time, and Joe got hurt, and I got an opportunity to play. Well, I got an opportunity to play, and I played, I guess we played 67 games. In those 67 games, I hit 20 home runs in rookie ball. And that's when things started to roll. You know, I figured that, okay, this is my one chance to shine, and I was going to take the opportunity to shine. I always tell my young kids, too, that it doesn't matter how you're doing before you get to the point where you get an opportunity to go play at a higher level. You know, yeah, you got to work hard. Yeah, you might not be the best player, which I wasn't. I was not the best player. But I tell you one thing that I can tell everybody. I said, at that stage, there was not going to be nobody that was going to work harder than I did on my game. It was that important. Because I was on a mission. This was it for me. If I didn't make it in baseball, yeah, I probably could have went back to college and played football, but that wasn't what I was wanting to do. I wanted to play baseball. And it's the thing, now every time you see guys on TV, every one of them is bigger than me, right? They're huge. Well, I wasn't the prototype baseball player. And Bob can tell you about this. I wasn't the prototype baseball player. I didn't look good in the lobby like Kelly Brewer. I didn't look good in the lobby like Kelly Brewer. So I think what happened, you know, really my time in Toronto, we had such great athletes. You know, you look around the field, I mean, everybody was children, from Lloyd Mosby, George Bell, Jesse Barker, Willie Upshaw, Tony Fernandez. We had so many great athletes. I was just not going to work out in Toronto. I wish I could have. But Pat Gillick, I guess, and you know, there were a lot of those folks who was making all the decisions. You know, we had so many great first basemen, Willie Upshaw, myself, Fred McGriff, John Arroyo was coming a few years down the line. So again, my best way to become a Major League Baseball player was to go to Japan. And you know, when Gordon Nash called me and told me, Cecil, listen here, if you don't accept this deal to go to Japan, you're probably going to come back to Toronto and do the same thing you've been doing. You're going to platoon, you're going to get 100 at-bats, and that's about it. I told him, I'm going. And really wasn't looking forward. I wasn't really thinking about coming back to play here in the States because that was my opportunity to shine, whether it was going to be in Japan or whether it was going to be a career. Wherever I was there was going to send me, I was going to go over there and do the best I could. Well, went over there with 306 at-bats. I hit another 38 home runs. I'd have hit 50 in Japan that year if I wouldn't have broke my hand. So when I came back home after that season, I can remember like it was yesterday, you know, Bill DeJoy, who just passed away, with Sparky, my people, you know, two of my favorite people just passed away, called me at the house and asked me did I want to become a Tiger. Didn't really know that much about the organization other than, you know, us playing them while I was with the Blue Jays and some of the tight, tough games we had with them in '87. You know, I was a dead bird, still in second base, got thrown out. But it wasn't my fault. Now, I got to explain this real quick. Pete. I got to explain this, still in second base. Now, okay, let's run this back, because I really got to let y'all understand where I'm coming from here. I start off the 7th inning. I'm leadoff hitter in the 7th inning. I was playing first base that day. Willie Upshaw was sitting down. Frank Tanana was pitching. So I lead the inning off, base hit. Okay? So while I was on the bench in the dugout, Jimmy Williams says, Seth, first pitch, we're going to hit and run with Manny Lee. Well, Manny Lee didn't swing. Now, I love Jimmy Williams to death. Don't get me wrong, I got to tell you the whole story, but I love Jimmy Williams to death. But I always thought about this ever since I was thrown out at second base. I wasn't going to come up to hit again in that game. Why didn't he pitch run Willie Upshaw? Now, if Manny didn't swing and Willie Upshaw stole, he might have been saved. So that's been bothering me for a long time. Why am I trying to steal a base? I ain't had a big stolen base yet, and I'm trying to steal a base.
Yeah, I was mentioned that.
You remember that day. So then I get an opportunity to come back to Detroit, and I meet this man, the great man, Sparky Anderson. I got to tell you, folks, you know, that man was like a second father. I mean, he was a great person. Called me in his office the first day I get to spring training. And he said, son, you got to play. I said, what do you mean I got to play? He said, we lost 103 games last year. You got to play. I think that was the best thing that he could have told me. You know, growing up in the clubhouse with him, there was so much knowledge in that clubhouse. I mean, just to listen to him speak and talk sometime, it was just, for me, I was like a kid in a candy store, because I had this man, not only did this man do great things with the Big Red Machine, but he was also able to do that in Detroit. And just to be around him and just, you know, hear that laugh or him tell a story, it was just a special time for me. So in saying that, I go, you know, in spring training, you know, I think in spring training, I must have hit 10 home runs in spring training. Everybody was going crazy, like, who is this? It was the same guy that just didn't play when he was in Toronto, but I think I hit 10 home runs in spring training. And then really got off to a slow start my first couple weeks in Detroit. I think it took me about 3 weeks to get my first home run off of David Johnson, one of my winning ball teammates who played for Baltimore. But from that point on, I think, you know, it was one of those incredible years I had. I think, you know, looking back on that year, you know, there was a lot of things that I had to prove, because, you know, one thing about me and being as big as I was in the early 90s, I just had to keep on proving myself. I had to keep making people believe that I could play the game of baseball. And that's one thing that was always frustrating to me, and I think Bob really knows this about me. I hated when people had, you know, tried to make an excuse because I was a bigger guy, I was heavier than the normal guy. I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to go out there and compete with what I had. This is me. It ain't gonna change. This is who I am. And I think when I started popping them balls over the fence, a lot of that stuff went away. There was one comment that was made, I was at Roy Firestone, you know. Try not to get emotional when you go see Roy, you know. So I'm on Roy Firestone's show, and he had some little thing he heard from Pat Gillick, who I love Pat Gillick. He's one of my favorite people. He says, Pat said that, you know, he had to use 3 players for you, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people are talking about you might be a flash in the pan. I said, well, I'm going to tell you this. If a flash in the pan can drop 50 and drive in 132, that's a flash in the pan, that's who I'm going to be. But it ain't happened in 25 years in the game of baseball, and I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish. The following year, I dropped 44 and 133. I was second. I had the most votes, MVP votes in 2 years than probably anybody in the history of baseball. Didn't win it. But that wasn't what was important to me, gentlemen. I want these young people to hear this. It ain't about the individual awards, man. It's about them cats that play around me. Them days I go out there and play when my body wasn't feeling right, but I knew I had to be in the lineup. Because if I was in the lineup, maybe Travis Fryman gets something to hit. Maybe Alan Trammell gets something to hit. Maybe Sweet Lou gets something to hit. Maybe they walk me, knowing I'm not even feeling good, but maybe I do something to help my team win. You want to talk about real baseball? Real baseball is about winning. How you going to do it? No one individual wins, Drew. No one individual wins in this game. It takes team effort. I used to always get a little upset when I felt that my teammates weren't giving me everything they had, because, you know, with my upbringing in the game of baseball, I had no time to take time off when I played. I had to go out there and give it everything I had every single day, because I knew as soon as I didn't, there was going to be those chirps, hey, he's slowing down, hey, he's not hitting the ball anymore. So every opportunity I got, every at-bat I got, I took my at-bat serious. Sparky Anderson used to tell me all the time, hey, I need to give you a day off. No, you don't. I ain't taking no day off. Because I remember about Wally Pitt. I ain't taking no day off. And that's what the passion of my game, and the passion of these guys that are sitting on this desk, the passion of guys that have come before you, there's a passion about playing this game. And it comes from right here. If you ain't got it up in here, you ain't never going to have it. It's got it. Right now, I think I can go out and I can win a home run hitting contest, because I'm 48 years old and I still feel like I can do it. Now, don't get me wrong, I probably can't do it, but I think I can. And that's the attitude a baseball player always has. You got to be on the edge. You got to be on the edge. You know, people used to always tell me, you know, you always out on the field early, you know, you and your boy, y'all hitting, and you hitting early, you at the ballpark at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. You know what? That was my game. I had to be at the ballpark to let everybody else know that I was ready to play. I didn't just go to the ballpark and sit around and laugh and giggle and talk and act a fool, which I did quite a few times. But I was there when my teammates walked through that door, and I wanted them to know that, hey, the big boy's ready to go. I'm ready to play. There's some days I don't even know how I made it out on the field. One day I was playing first base and Carney Lansford ran by me and he jammed my hand. I was out there trying to swing with one hand. Sparky finally just told me to go sit down. I couldn't play anymore because it is so important. And, you know, I always go back to the point to where me not having that Kelly Gruber physique was always going to be a detriment to me. It wasn't going to be a situation where I could go, you know, 2 months without hitting the ball because there was going to be something mentioned about me. And I was too heavy. I wasn't in shape. Blah, blah, blah. One time, had this great guy. He was our strength coach. And he came in one year and told me, he said, listen, you're not in shape. You're not going to, you need to, I said, just watch. When the season's over, look at my numbers, and then you figure out what's going on. Because you know what? It ain't all about what you look like. Playing this game ain't all about what you look like. Playing this game is playing the game with the passion that you have to play this game in. 162 games, gentlemen, that ain't easy. It ain't easy on nobody. But all these young boys out here that y'all having fun right now, at some point in your life, you're going to have to take it serious. Because if this is what you want to do, you got to burn the midnight oil. I always tell my kids, you know, when we get done on the East Coast and the kids on the West Coast just starting, there's somebody always working after you go home, take a shower, and go to sleep, eat dinner, and go to bed. Them boys on the West Coast still working. Did not want, you know, and I'm going to tell you what, I am a very competitive person. You know, I used to look at playing games really by a guy that's playing my position. I used to do that. I used to look at it, focus in on it with all my teammates. If we beat you position by position, we win. We win. It's a team game, but it's also an individual game. You got to play like that other cat's playing. That other cat's sliding and getting dirty, you get dirty too. Hell, you might not get no hits, but get dirty. You know, I had an opportunity to play with a great man, and then after he left Detroit, I got an opportunity to leave Detroit and go to New York. Now, this is really when it's come full circle. I get an opportunity to play number one. They trade for me July 31st at the trade deadline in 1996. Well, the general manager of that team was Bob Watson. Bob Watson's father lived right next door to me since I was about 2 years old. I've known Bob Watson my whole life. Now I get an opportunity to play for Bob Watson, and I get an opportunity to play for Joe Torre. That team was a special team. That 96 team was a special team because we had so many different characters on that team. I mean, we had Wade Ballers, Dale Strawberry, Doc Good, David Coleman, Andy Pettit, Kenny Rogers, who couldn't throw the ball over the plate if he had to that year. Tim Raines, Bernie Williams, Paul O'Neill, I mean, Tito Martinez, myself, Mariano Duncan, the kid Jeter was a kid, Mariano Rivera, Wetland. We would play a 6-inning game. This is the way we looked at it. If we win for 6 innings, we win. We're going to bring Mariano in for 2, Wetland in for the 9th, game over. Whatever that score was, and we were ahead in the bottom of the 6th inning, we win. There was a saying that he used to say, and it was crazy because I ain't never been in a place that these guys had this type of attitude. They were really talking about winning. They said, we play today, we win today. That's it. It's all about the attitude, gentlemen. You got to want to be who you want to be. All these folks sitting out here giving y'all all the support that you need. You better respect that. Because at the end of the day, if it wasn't for these folks sitting out here with you at these tables, you guys wouldn't be doing what you're doing. You know, us, we just talked about a little earlier, we don't have the privileges that you have right now. You guys got major privilege. And you better take advantage of your privilege. Because if you don't, it's going to pass you by. It's going to pass you by. Playing in the World Series, I say probably was the greatest time of my life. Had an opportunity for my son, Rock Gray's son, Charlie Hayes' son, to sit there in the clubhouse and watch us play night in, night out against probably the best team in baseball, the Atlanta Braves. And my old skipper, when I was here in Toronto, 1985. That was probably the best time of my life. I mean, I ain't never had so much fun. You know, I don't know what it was that year. The game was starting right after 9 o'clock. So game get over, it was at midnight, you know, go home, can't sleep, up at 8, ready to go back to the ballpark because the excitement was definitely in the air. You know, they beat us the first 2 games in New York. We go to the ballpark, and it's a true story. And I think, you know, it always comes from the top. The manager is the guy that really keeps everybody focused and keeps everybody loose. So we fly into Atlanta. We had a workout day the next day, so the following day was game 3. So, we the bad Yankees, so the bad Yankees come take the field, and the Braves fans are in the aisles of the seats with brooms sweeping, like they're gonna sweep us. Oh, no, they didn't. So Joe Torre calls us back in the clubhouse, and all he said was, "Did y'all see that?" And eventually we went out and beat them 4 straight games and ended up winning the World Series in 1996. That was the first time that Joe Torre had an opportunity to win the World Series, the 23rd World Series won by the Yankees. But those are the things that you never forget. And I always say this before I close, and I want you young people to really understand where I'm coming from. The relationships that you make in the game, whether it's the Ontario Blue Jays group, whether you're going to college, whether some of you guys have an opportunity to play pro baseball, those relationships that you make are for a lifetime. Just remember what I said. Those relationships that you make are for a lifetime. You know, I go to New York, I see Derek Jeter, kids sit right next to me playing crazy ass Mariah Carey music every day. I used to throw his CDs away, I'd throw a CD player away and go buy him a new one. But I got tired of Mariah Carey. You know, Bernie Williams, I mean, all these kids I played with now that have become superstars. And you know, I always say I got an opportunity to share everything I did with my boy. Now, everybody knows, everybody been talking about it, says, me and my boy gonna be fine. But I'm gonna tell you what, there ain't, on my teams I played on, there was never one of my teammates that was a father that took the time that I took with my son. He can tell you, everybody at that table right there can probably tell you. Because I wanted my son to see what I did. This is what I do. He and I used to go on road trips every summer. Once school was out, he'd be with me. I wanted him to see baseball. And, you know, a lot of you don't know, but my son was really, really overweight. I mean, he was a big scoundrel. He was 306 pounds when he was 14 years old. So at that point, it was about the end of my career. I was about ready to shut it down. And Prince came to me and he said, "Dad, I want to play baseball." So I said, "Well, son, let me tell you something. They ain't gonna let you play like that. You're gonna have to get in shape. You're gonna have to sacrifice. You're gonna have to blood, sweat, and tears it and get ready, because once you're a senior, and if you ain't in shape, you ain't playing." Well, I had a good friend of mine who was a strength coach. He took Prince from 306 pounds down to 248 pounds in about 2 years. He bench pressed about 500 pounds, leg pressed almost 1,000 pounds. He was a beast. Ran a 6'8" at 250 pounds. But that was in his blood. Baseball was in his blood. He never played basketball. He never played football. His first cousin is Ricky Williams. He's an NFL football player. He could have played football because he was that kind of body. But at the end of the day, I was happy and I was proud. When my son was drafted, that was probably one of the greatest days of my life, because I seen this kid who had the desire to be somebody. This kid had the desire to be somebody. He had this desire to be better than his father, which he is going to be, because he's that type of beast. He's a beast. I call him a beast. And the thing about it, and the reason why, it's just the same kind of drive that this kid had since he was a little kid. And when he became a high school player, I seen it. He was ready for it. He had lived it already. And he was ready to see and ready to go out there and perform at a top level. And he's been able to accomplish that. But again, at the end of the day, as a father of a person who is going to be, I don't know where he's going. I think he's going to Washington. I think the thrill is gone about Toronto. I don't think it's going to happen. But I think he might be a national, Washington National. He's going to have a great rest of his career. Probably end up maybe hitting 500 home runs in the big leagues. But at the end of the day, the thing that I could always say about him is that he and I, and you really got to understand this, from the time he was old enough to really move around with me, we were more friends than we were father-son. We were more friends. I think having him with me, you know, he'd be talking trash about I was too far away from the plate. What are you doing? You know. And I'm gonna have my opportunity. I've had my opportunity to do that to him too. Tell him, man, get on the plate, scoot up. But at the end of the day, you see that it's always been a fire burning in him to play the game of baseball. I'm so proud that my son is playing baseball. And you guys and you parents should feel proud that your kids are taking the initiative to do something special in their life. Because at the end of the day, it's all about your character. It's all about what they're going to do later on in life, where they're going to be. Baseball is just a stepping stone. Our careers end very short.